This is the story of the magic nesting doll. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Katya. She lived with her grandmother in Russia near the edge of the forest. They loved each other very much until one day her grandmother fell ill. She called Katya to her side and grasped her hand. She said, "My dear sweet child, my time is near and you must make your own way in the world, but I have a gift that will help you." Katya looked musingly as her grandmother put a small nesting doll in her hand, painted in the likeness of her grandmother. Katya sighed, and trying to appease her grandmother, she started to open the doll. "Stop," her grandmother explained. "Not now. If your need is great, open the doll and help will come, but you'll only have 3 chances. After that, the magic is gone. Keep this doll and remember me, my dear child." Katya gave her grandmother a hug and promised to remember. The next day, the grandmother died and Katya was left with this strange present in her pocket. It was spring when Katya set out, but the next day it strangely turned to a harsh frozen winter. What? Katya thought. Winter is not supposed to be here for another few months. But it was Russia, so Katya did not think much of it. She walked and walked until she stumbled upon a great city. She walked into the nearest inn and warmed herself near the fire with a nice bowl of soup. She was getting ready to retire for the evening. She walked up to the innkeeper and asked, "Please, could you wake me in the morning?" Because this was the Middle Ages and it was before alarm clocks. The innkeeper gave a hearty laugh. "Then you will sleep forever, for there is no more morning." He motioned for her to come closer and explained, "Ever since the Tsarevich fell under a wicked spell that turned him into living ice, now and forever it will always be winter without thaw, night without moon, and dark without dawn." Katya put her hand over her mouth in shock. "A man of ice?" she exclaimed quietly. She thought about it for a few moments and jumped up in surprise, and surprised the surrounding customers, and explained, "I must see this man of ice." The innkeeper bellowed a deep laugh. "Good luck with that. The royal Tsarevich lives deep inside the palace, watched over by his uncle, the Grand Vizier." Katya pondered and reached for the doll tucked within her pocket. "Perhaps I can break the spell." The innkeeper laughed in her face, but Katya went to sleep that night, determined to break the enchantment over the land and the mysterious prince. Katya awoke the next morning to complete and utter darkness. She made her way to the glorious palace that glittered even in the dark, full of golden domes. She dared not try the front door with the mean-looking guards. She wandered around the length of the palace until she discovered a tall tree in the courtyard. Katya scurried up the tree and peered through the open window. On a large bed surrounded by candles laid a man of living ice. Her gaze wandered up to a mean-looking man who snapped his fingers to the guards when he saw her. The guards grabbed her from the tree and threw her into the room with the frozen Tsarevich. Katya was startled. His lips were pale blue and his fingers were translucent. The only sign he was human was the faint rise of his chest as he took short, shallow breaths. The Grand Vizier glared at her. "Why have you come here? Just to gawk at our poor Tsarevich?" Katya was not afraid and looked right at him. "I have come to break the spell." "You? You stupid girl. We have had healers and powerful magicians come and try to break the curse, and they have all failed. Why do you think you can do it when they have not?" Katya reached down and clutched the doll deep within her pocket. "I know I can do it," she replied with all the courage she had left. The Grand Vizier became red in the face. "Guards," he screamed, "throw this girl in the dungeon." Katya felt herself being grabbed and pulled towards the dungeon. She tried to put on a brave face, but as soon as the soldiers locked the prison door and walked away, leaving her alone, she burst into tears. "Oh, grandmother," she sobbed, pulling out the nesting doll. "If there was ever a time I need your help, it's now." She took the nesting doll out of her pocket and began to twist off the top layer. As soon as she twisted off the lid, a brown bear stood next to her, yawning. "You woke me from my slumber," the bear grumbled. It shook its massive coat and sat beside her. "How can I help you, little one?" the bear asked her. Katya dried her eyes and stared at the bear in wonder. "Thank you for coming to my aid. I need to get out of this dungeon, and there is a curse on this land and the royal Tsarevich. Winter without thaw, night without moon, and dark without dawn." the bear began to rise. "This seems like a nice, quiet place to sleep to me, but if you wish to leave, I'm here to serve you. Also, I can easily bring an end to the winter. Climb onto my back." Katya scrambled onto the massive bear and held onto his fur as the bear easily knocked down the door with his massive paw. As they exited the dungeon, the snow began to thaw and melt away. She led him back to the palace, and they easily got past the guards and entered the bedchamber of the royal Tsarevich. When she entered, she saw that he was less icy than when she first saw him. The bear looked at her. "This is all the help I can give. Keep the nesting doll close and remember me." Katya looked up and the bear was gone, and she was surrounded by a circle of guards and the Grand Vizier. The Grand Vizier looked less healthy than when she saw him last. His cheeks had gained a tint of blue. He angrily glared at her and snapped his fingers at the guards. "I don't know how you managed to escape, but I will put you in a place where you will never escape again." Katya did not say a word as the guards dragged her into the forest and threw her into a deep pit that seemed to stretch for miles. Katya reached for the doll in her pocket and began to take off the second layer. "Please, grandmother, I need you once again." As she twisted off the second layer, she saw a wolf materialize beside her. "Little one, how can I be of aid to you?" Katya pet the wolf's muzzle and explained, "I need to escape from this pit and save my land and my Tsarevich. There is a curse upon our land, winter without thaw, night without moon, and dark without dawn." "I can help bring the moon back. Climb onto my back and we shall leave this pit." Katya climbed on the wolf's back as he left from the pit. With a loud howl, the moon slowly began to reappear in the sky. Katya guided the wolf back to the palace. They leapt over the guards and walked into the bedchamber of the royal Tsarevich. The Tsarevich looked almost human and had lost most of the iciness from his face and hands. The wolf looked at Katya. "There is no more I can do. Keep this doll and remember me." Katya reached for the wolf in thanks as he disappeared. The Grand Vizier stormed into the bedchamber, looking less human, with icicles hanging from his face and beard. He screamed at his guard to take Katya away. The guards bound Katya's wrists and threw her into a cart. They traveled far into the forest and up a large mountain. They threw her from the cart on the top of the mountain and left her there. When Katya was sure that she heard their footsteps retreating, she reached for the nesting doll. "Please, grandmother, I call upon your aid one more time." She began to open the last part of the doll. As she did, a giant bird made of fire came crashing out of the doll and flew up into the air and landed beside her. "Little one, how can I help you?" Katya explained the curse and that she needed to get back to the palace. "Don't worry, my dear. Hop onto my back and I will bring back the dawn." Katya climbed on the firebird's back and held on while the firebird leapt towards the sky, bringing along the coming of the sunset. Katya was thrilled to see the sky light up in pink and gold and the sun rising with the coming of the dawn. The firebird flew into the bedchamber and put Katya lightly on her feet. Katya ran towards the Tsarevich sleeping in his bed. He looked completely human, but he was still asleep. Katya looked at him in despair. She wanted this beautiful Tsarevich to wake up. The firebird looked at her. "Little one, I have done all I can. It is up to you now." She placed a wing on Katya's back and disappeared. The Grand Vizier came in. Katya was stunned to see him. He was frozen in ice. He couldn't speak. His icy lips could not even open. Katya looked at the Tsarevich and felt despair that she had done all she could. She knew the guards were going to take her away. She reached down and kissed her dear Tsarevich, knowing that she would never see him again, locked away in a dungeon beneath the ground. As her lips touched the Tsarevich, she felt him breathe in deeply and his eyes flung open. As he opened his eyes, the Grand Vizier screamed a silent scream and shattered in 1,000 pieces. The Tsarevich jumped up and hugged Katya. "You saved me," the Tsarevich said. "I dreamt of you coming every day with a bear, a wolf, and a bird made of fire. The Grand Vizier wanted to rule, and he put me under a curse that turned me into a man of living ice." Katya related the story of how the nesting doll came to be and how it had saved the land and him. As she related her tale to him, they both fell more and more in love with each other. Within a few days they were married. They kept the nesting doll as a reminder of their past struggles and taught their children and grandchildren the story of how they were brought together. The end.